So a conservative and a liberal walk into a bar. What happened next was quite surprising. This ain't no joke.
Try to see me there.
I'm Jamie Allman.
I'm Judi Diamond, and this is the Allman Diamond Experience.
Compromise is fair.
It's been quite a few months.
Because it's been an experience on other levels, and so, yeah, we've been kind of
I'm just going to come out and say it, and I'll just say I lost 4 females in the last 12 months.
Wow.
4 very close females. Moms, my mother-in-law, who was the second mother to me, even though I was divorced, my sister, and my sister-in-law, both great mothers. So that's kind of why I was been out of touch. And then Jamie's been traveling and busy and working like crazy with your show and other shows all over.
Right. And just even remotely, it would be hard to do. So we just had to take a little bit of a break, but we're fine. We're refreshed.
Yeah.
And God love you for all that you've been through this year. It's been crazy. So
yeah, I don't, because of my own belief system. It's just selfish because I know they're okay. They're in a good place. I just don't have them here with me.
Yeah.
That's what sucks.
Well, and you've handled it with tremendous spirit and a degree of selflessness, meaning that you didn't kind of make it like you walked through it, you worked through it, and saw a bigger picture, so that it didn't strap you down, it didn't hold you down in your other endeavors in your daily life and that kind of thing, which is good. It's not necessarily stoicism. It's not that you were just trying to avoid it. It's just that you had a different way of processing it, which I admired.
True. That is, well,
greatly.
Thank you. I do process a little differently. There are days that I have had and will have, I'm sure my whole life, where I'll break down and go, I want to talk to my mommy when I was sick. But for the most part, I think that really helps in my own spiritual faith, which is so important. And I bring this up because they were my mom and my sister, 2 mom figures, and I was talking about parenting. And I brought that up because of the fact of how different my parents parented and how I parented and how I realized how much I screwed up. I just got really lucky with having 2 amazing kids. Thank you, Spirit, for giving me what I can handle.
Yeah.
And again, in all honesty, I wasn't going to be a mom. It just kind of, if you want to make God laugh, make a plan.
Yes,
thing
of course.
that happened. Best thing that ever, at the time, it was the worst thing that ever happened to me. And now it's the best thing that ever happened to me. If anything.
Yeah.
So that's a parent. You're a parent of 5. Right?
Yes.
I'll get to it. I promise. I'll let you
blessed.
talk.
Yeah.
Very blessed.
No, I know. Yeah.
I'm going to let you talk. I just had to set this up. So I work on a podcast with a woman who is, I'm going to call her a metaphysician, which is a new word in the metaphysical world. She is very, very educated. She is a graduate of Oxford University, was a professor of their psychology, and became a doula. And from there, became a tarot reader and now a spiritual advisor. So,
and a doula is
somebody who helps give birth to with moms. And so,
but that's not a midwife. It's just another word for it. Okay.
Yeah, it's a more modern word. And so her and I have been doing these sessions, and she has an 18-month-old with a shared baby daddy. And she was talking about raising kids now and how different it is. And we talked about tantrums. And she said the most important thing is that children are allowed their space. She goes, the problem is society tells us we're bad parents if we let the kid tantrum. And I said, well, hold on a second. When I was a kid, I tantrumed. And what my mother did, I don't remember the tantrums, but I remember being 2 and in my head thinking, you don't understand what I need. And she put me in a room and said, when you're done, I'll come back. She abandoned me. That's what I felt.
Yes.
I didn't know this at the time.
Right.
This was when I had to go through psychiatry. And this would happen a lot. And so this, Laura is her name. She's fantastic. She said, here's the thing. First and foremost, as a parent, you should not give a shit about other people judging your parenting skills.
That is for sure.
Number 1. Number 2, you should have had your space. So she said, for example, my son had a tantrum. He was in a grocery store. She said, I've been trying to wean off nursing, and he wanted to nurse, and I knew he wasn't hungry. She said, I gave him the space to tantrum. I told him, I love you. I'm still your mommy. I will always love you, but you can't have this anymore.
Yes.
About 20 minutes later, with people staring at her and everything, the kid started giggling. Broke him of the habit. He never tantrumed again.
Wow.
So I bring that up because I said, well, is there also something to do with, because so she was saying, don't take away what these emotions are for the child. Now, before you get into any kind of, or anybody who's listening goes, oh, millennial, parent, all touchy-feely. Mm-hmm. She said, no, you create boundaries, but you give them the space to have emotions and to have feelings. He was upset. Don't try to stop it. And I said, well, let me go one step further. So I thought the same thing as a parent. I used distraction. But now that I think about it, isn't that stopping him or her from feeling what they're feeling?
It could be, and it's different too, I guess, a tantrum in a home as opposed to a tantrum in a public place.
Sure.
Those are differently managed at sometimes.
Yep.
Because at some point you can't just have the kids screaming publicly all over the joint.
Well, and this happened to me.
Yeah.
With my son Leo at 17 years old in Target. And he would never do this. And I realized, he actually taught me something.
Yeah.
He's having a tantrum. And I said, not here, not now. And he goes, why not here right now? Not now. And I said, well, I happen to be in the public eye a little bit. And I don't want to do this right here. He goes, that's the problem. You never let me feel. And I just went, whoa.
Wow. At 17, he said that.
At 17.
Oh.
So what took me many years and many therapists later to figure out, he figured out early. And then, and since then, and then he said I was the worst mother ever. I mean, he said some really mean things. But then we worked it out and we've never been closer.
Yeah.
And he said he still feels bad about saying that. I said, no, it woke myself up.
Yeah, yeah.
So my question to you is, do you think that as a parent, this is something that is needed and in schools?
Absolutely. Here's the thing. I think to a certain degree, adults tantrum.
Absolutely.
And the best thing you can do with an adult who is tantruming is to separate yourself from them and not engage with them. Because believe me, with adults who tantrum, it always winds up being about you instead of them. I guarantee you, when you try to intervene or and it's not about not making them feel better. I mean, there is a level there where you need to make people feel better when they are upset, when they are this, or to talk it out, that kind of thing. I'm not saying
you don't
just
have
lock
to make
somebody
them
out.
feel better. Just give them the space to feel.
Yes, exactly.
Without being attached.
Yes, and don't engage
without abandoning them.
Yeah, but because tantruming, even with kids, ultimately is an effort to engage you to a certain degree.
For me, in my little head, and still to this day, it sticks with me. You're not listening. You're not listening to what I'm trying to say. You're not understanding me.
Right.
See me, hear me.
Right.
That's what a tantrum is.
Yeah.
At any age.
And sometimes it can be an unhappiness with something, but they need somebody to attach their misery to engage them in that way. That happens more with adults and babies and kids. Kids just aren't getting what they want, or they're not able to articulate oftentimes how they feel.
Exactly.
And so the best way to do that is, the first thing you would not do is condemn them for the tantrum.
Right.
And say, I'm going to leave you alone here for a little bit. I want you to figure this out and think about it. And then when you want to come and tell me exactly what it is that your problem is. And you can talk to a 4-year-old like this.
I know, but I was abandoned when that's how I felt.
Exactly, yeah.
So it didn't work for me.
But did they talk to you and say, hey, here's the thing.
I remember my mother, even though I don't know how I knew this, but I remember my mom, because I did have a lot of tantrums. I was the only kid of the family who had them.
Yeah.
I was the youngest of 4. And so there was always noise. I always never was heard, kind of a thing. And that I remember always trying to communicate. Nobody seemed to hear me. And I remember she would say, until you can calm down and figure this out on your own, you are by yourself. And I would go in a room.
Yeah.
She'd make me go in a room, which is punishment for feeling my feelings.
Yes.
So
we talked to your cousin a little bit about that at one point too. And I do think that ultimately I think it also depends on the personality. I mean, there are different kinds of personalities that tantrum that you can work with in certain ways and can't work with in other ways. And then of course every kid is different if they tantrum. So, my whole feeling about it is I usually was like, I'm going to just separate from this, because ultimately I'm going to be sucked into this, and then I'm going to be blamed for whatever feelings this person has because now it's become an issue of me. For instance, when you start to shut somebody down tantrum-wise, or when you start to, then they have somebody to blame or attach it to, and you never get to the real issue as to why the tantrum is happening or why those feelings are there.
But what if you wanted to find out? What if it was somebody you work with, somebody you're married to, somebody you're whatever the relationship is, your kid, an adult kid, and again, I don't want. And I know we're going to get people that say, oh, there's the millennial or whatever. And I'm not. I'm a Gen Xer. But talking about feelings. But it's about giving them their space without encroaching, whatever the word is, on your space. Mm-hmm. But not abandoning them. In other words, let's say they're saying, well, I'm mad because you. And just go, hold on a second. I see you're mad.
Yeah.
I understand what it feels like to be mad. I don't quite understand why. But I love you. I'm here for you or whatever. But let's just go ahead and feel this.
Yeah.
However long it takes you to feel it. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere.
Right.
Feel whatever you need to feel. And then let's really get down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. Depends on the situation.
Well, and I do think what you just relayed there, I'm telling you, a 6-year-old understands that.
I agree.
I would imagine even
don't put them in a room by themselves.
Yes.
That's abandonment.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. And I love you, Mom, and I'm fine. I love my parents. It's just
lock the door or close the door.
Oh, that too. I mean, that's emotional distress to a kid.
Yeah. Or use bear spray, which is not something you want to have handy with.
No. Or rat
I'm
poison.
kidding. Yeah,
I know.
Right. But I think that's right. I think the more you engage somebody peacefully, because what happens is when it's
still with boundaries.
Yes, when somebody tantrums, depending on your upbringing, your proclivities, you automatically get to a heightened state of tension too, and so you tend. The worst thing you do is tantrum back, which is go crazy on them because they're tantruming, because then you are tantruming to a certain level. So your approach, Judi, about just taking some of the tension down, just trying to...
And valuing their space, validating that they feel this way and saying, so feel this way.
Right.
You're not going to always, in life, you're not going to always be happy. Well, we know what happiness is if we didn't know the other. So that's just a moment. If you ever saw the show Kimmy Schmidt, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah.
If you get a chance, just watch some of the little footage on YouTube. She says, things always can be okay if you can just go every 10 seconds.
Right.
She was sitting there kidnapped in a basement of this weirdos, with these other 3 girls. And he made her turn a wheel, all of them, for hours on end to supply water. So she would turn the wheel and she'd say, if we could just go 10 more seconds, everything would be okay.
Yeah.
For years she did this, but in other words, that's kind of where I was getting at with that.
Well, then there are certain words you use that will elevate it too. So if you make it all about, well, I've done everything for you, what do you have to be upset about?
Right. It's made it about you.
And invalidation is a really big deal for kids and with adults. And there are ways that people invalidate people. Sometimes they don't even know they're doing it, or feelings invalidate people's
if
feelings.
You're distracting them, that's not validating their feelings. You're distracting them. You're going, oh, honey, don't have it. Here, I know you really want that, but I'll get you a treat if you act good. That's distraction, and that's not allowing them their feelings. It's the same thing.
Yeah, bribing them, whatever.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, too, because I remember when my 2 older ones were younger, and we had this book, What to Expect When You're Expecting, and then what to expect when you have a toddler.
Yep.
And then all these rules, all these things, and all these advice that
you
always say please to your child when you want them to do something. It's like, no, not always. I mean, I will occasionally.
You
but
should have expectations.
Yeah. And so I think people don't give themselves the grace of sometimes parenting in the way that they feel is proper, because they always hear from somebody else or they've read it someplace.
Right.
They have to react a certain way. And as you pointed out very early on, which is brilliant, which is the worst thing you do is worry about what other people think about how you're handling something.
Yep. It's not their kid.
Yes, exactly.
You're not beating up your kid. You're letting your kid have feelings.
Yes.
Wow, what a concept.
Yeah.
And what a concept that would be in schools. What a concept that would be in politics.
Yeah.
Wow.
Did they really do the dunce cap in school?
I don't know. It was always on cartoons.
Yeah, but or to isolate the child or whatever. I mean,
still isolate.
Obviously, you have to be careful because you do have
Physically.
15 other students around that are putting in the same, and their parents are putting in the same. So you can't let somebody just simply hijack the entirety of everything.
Right.
But I do think that there are times when that has to be addressed because it's disruptive and what have you. And I'm not quite sure whether or not teachers, God love them, are always equipped just simply to do that because their process is, I got to move on here. I got a bunch of kids here. I can't let this one person be disruptive. As opposed to maybe taking some time out in the long term, it might have an effect on the longer term piece of the entire classroom.
Right. Or you look at my son who just started at a Title I outside of Boston, and he was saying he finally gets through to a student or two in a very tough school district, and then he's got a whole new set of classes. And, for the next 3 months, he doesn't get to get that. He's had 8th graders. Now he has a semester of 7th graders.
Yeah.
And he just starts to just break a little bit of a tension there and getting through, and then boom, new students. It's very hard, the consistency.
Yeah. And it's cultural, too. I mean, there are some people, I'm sure, who, if they listen to this, they're going to say, I don't put up with anything.
I spank my kid.
That kid's eating my food,
right.
And I give them a house, and that's all they need, and that should be it. And I understand that part of it.
Right.
But you got to remember that there are so many kids out there, especially now, who don't want to bother talking to their parents because perhaps there has been a past where when you have even tantrumed, you are dismissed.
Yeah.
And I imagine that your process, your approach early on might actually open up certain avenues of discussion in the future. Mm-hmm. So if you address the tantrum in that way, then maybe when they're 14, they don't, because there's another way to tantrum, and that is to isolate yourself.
Totally.
And go into your phone and not ever tell your parents what you're thinking.
Yep. Or what you're doing.
What
or
problems are going on, whatever, because they have already learned that you've put them in the room and locked the door.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it's no wonder sometimes that they wind up putting themselves in a room and locking the door.
With drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
I have an affliction of addiction, and I've heard stories that are all starting at young age like that.
Yeah.
And again, feeling not a part of anything, and how do we make people feel a part of connection? Doing things like what we're doing, that we think differently politically, but we're still connecting.
Yeah.
As a society, as a community, and as a family, and as people, to allow the space to feel emotions, but to still protect your own space, but be there for them as well. It seems simple. It's not, because we take everything personally.
Yes.
Let's face it. Everything is about us because we're humans and we're egocentric.
Egocentric, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's how we're made to survive, but we need to go a step further because we are shifting energy, and we need to figure out a way to survive better connected.
Yeah. Well, and do you think that sometimes the reason why a tantrum isn't dealt with in a productive way is because parents do take it personally. Like they believe if the kid's tantruming, they must be doing something wrong. They must have failed the child in some way, and therefore you get defensive and you're like, man, I worked my butt off all day long and I come home and this kid's crabbing about everything. And maybe if you took that, taking it personally out of it, you'd be more open to be able to deal with it.
Or even another thing of taking it personally is, why are you doing this to me?
Yes.
Why don't you know I work 3 jobs in order for you to have food on the table? In other words, so still.
Right.
Why are you doing this to me? And it's like, because I've done that. I'm guilty. Guilty as charged as a parent. I've done it. And so... and I brought that up the other day to my son. And he goes, Mom, I turned out great. You were great. And I go, yeah, in hindsight. Remember this time? And he goes, why are you bringing up this stuff? I go, because I'm learning from it.
Yeah.
And it's how it is how we learn. It's how to take yourself. And that, again, I'm going to go to the boundaries, but I brought it up only because it really helped me I had to go back because I had no idea that all my issues she's like, I'm known as a mover. I move a lot. Why do you move? Well, I did it when I was young. And why? Because I didn't have the space I needed.
Right,
and then we come back down to finding I never would have used the word abandoned. It sounds really ridiculously over dramatic, but that was as that age.
Yeah.
She kind of like led me. She didn't say that. I'm the one who goes, oh my God, I'm abandoned. It was kind of like that. And then a man abandoned me, and then another man, and then this and that. And the dominoes keep going.
Well, and I think, my mom, I was mostly raised by my mom, and she, of course, has the Pennsylvania Dutch German approach. Those people really, there's not a lot of emotion there. But I didn't feel, and she wasn't tough, though. She kind of let me sink or swim, which I appreciated.
That's
I mean,
great.
she rarely, if ever, yelled. And like even when she found my sister and I growing a pot plant in the bathtub on the 3rd floor, all she did was take the pot plant. We came home from school one day. It wasn't there anymore. Enough said.
Okay, my older brother got in major trouble because of that.
But there was no meeting. There was nothing. We just knew exactly that was wrong.
Right.
And if we want to bring it up or complain, I wouldn't do that. But, my mom was more along the lines of more the Pennsylvania Dutch approach, which was emotionless, which is fine.
Right.
Because my mom wasn't really a touchy-feely, let's sit down and talk type of person, even though my mom is sentimental and amazing.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't take anything out of it.
But as a parent, she was more of just a...
She was more practical.
Right.
Like I got caught streaking once, and I was the only one who wasn't punished for it. You know what I mean?
Wow. Okay.
Because I remember coming home after being caught the night, because we slept over at somebody's house, and my friend got the crap beat out of him. And I came home the next day and had to explain what was going on. She's putting on her makeup or something to go out someplace, and just don't do it again. I'm like, okay.
It's kind of how I was.
And just
more.
as I never did it again.
Yeah, I was kind of very similar to that. I would talk to my kids about it, and I go, well, that's okay. And then there were times though when I did fly off the handle and go, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah.
Why are you making me look bad? I'm in media. You can't make me look bad.
Right.
Kind of thing. And here I am talking about my kids on the air and on national TV, international TV. My poor kids,
Yeah.
And thank God they still love me. It's amazing.
Yeah. She did wash my mouth out with soap once.
I was
very
threatened
early.
that, but it never happened.
She actually followed through, which shocked me.
Yeah.
And I never
Good for her.
did it again.
And I think follow through is important. And I'm not a believer of spanking.
No.
But there are so many people that still believe in it, and I don't judge you. It's just me.
Yeah.
So don't judge me.
Yeah.
But I just wonder if that's a different approach to being a human and connecting, is to give people space.
Yeah.
To just feel.
I never had to. I never did that. When my son was 14, and he at one point, 14 or 13. And he called my ex-wife a bitch when I was standing there, and I dropped him on the ground.
Your oldest?
Yeah, my oldest son, and I dropped him on the ground, and he appreciated that. But I told him never do that again. And even though we were divorced, I would never have allowed it.
Not. Yeah.
And so but I rarely had to use any kind of physical force. It's usually been with the boys. Every once in a while, I had to get them straight to tell them to chill out and stop. And usually it was because they were doing something to somebody else.
Right.
But that's about it. I normally I'm not a physical person with the kids at all.
And you don't, with teenage girls, even boys, for me, the hardest thing was I just wanted to take their pain.
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. That's what I was learning from this metaphysician.
Yeah.
Is that you can't take their pain. Whatever they're going to go through, you're there for them. You love them. You cannot take their pain. My daughter was bullied so bad, and I wanted to go and beat these kids up. You don't want to have no idea. Well, and she figured it out. She left high school early. She's a lawyer. Some of those kids ended up in drug rehab. So there you go. She handled it, but it was really hard not to step up and just be the parent that you think you have to be.
Right. I mean, raising your voice is another thing. You'd be amazed at what not raising your voice actually does when they are in a heightened state of agitation. the minute you start to yell, it elevates it even more.
Yeah.
And so I've rarely raised my voice at the kids.
Yeah. I think that's actually really
My
important.
mom never did.
I think that's really important, not to raise your voice, but also to still listen and just calmly be there, as opposed to, my ex-husband, passive aggressively ignoring and ghosting.
And you can be stern and have expectations when
Absolutely,
you need to be,
boundaries.
but it doesn't
Yeah.
always have to be with an elevation.
Right, exactly.
Physically
And again,
or
it's not about you.
vocally. Yeah.
It's not about you. Remember what they're going through.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was an interesting topic.
Absolutely is. I think it's great. I think people hopefully will listen to this and feel also a level of being freed from the constraints of having to react or being afraid of reacting with peace as opposed to with pugilism. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So,
Or there's also the fact, and I brought this up to Laura. I said, when I was going through being sick and losing, I was just going through a lot of stuff. She goes, I told her, I said, I live in a condo. I just wanted to scream at the top of my lungs. I had no place to scream. She goes, well, your car. And I go, no, because people look at me strange. And she goes, screw them. Get in your car, take a drive, and scream. And I thought, when was the last time, Jamie, when was the last time you screamed at the top of your lungs?
yeah, I don't,
Right? Years?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that primal scream. We should all be able to do that somewhere,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we're so freaking controlled by our emotions and media and social norms that let's take a lesson from what she was saying about your kid's tantrum and
Yeah.
allow us to feel pissed off or happy at times or whatever we're feeling.
I tend to have whatever things that are going through my mind manifest themselves in frustration with dumb little things. Like, there's this plug in the back of my Jeep where I try to plug in my phone. I can never friggin' find the thing with my hand.
Right.
And at some point I'm like, gee, I'm like yelling about that,
You damn Jeep.
But that's a manifestation of other frustrations.
Absolutely.
But I don't just yell about other frustrations.
Right.
But sometimes it comes through when little things aren't working or
true.
can't do little things.
Yeah.
Drives you crazy. And then you're
God,
thinking,
why are you punishing me?
it's a culmination of just all the crap I've been doing. I can't plug in my phone in my Jeep.
Right.
And
then when it all comes down to it, guess who's in control?
Yeah.
You.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
We're all in control of our own emotions, but
Yeah.
don't control others.
Right.
Maybe that's the whole.
And don't try to
Or
either.
don't try to.
Yeah.
Let them feel.
Yeah.
So I decided that we're going to open a screaming room, a crying room somewhere, some bar.
Yeah. Some bar. Huh?
Of course. No, that's not a good idea.
Yeah. Because people won't want to scream. They're going to feel so good.
I
You
know.
gotta
No,
go-
it's just one space, like a padded white cell room, where we can also do psychedelics as testing under subjects.
Oh,
But,
wow.
It's just a thought.
That sounds like quite the place.
I know. Let's open it up. The Allman Diamond Psychedelic Experience.
Judy's Bar and Grill and Cry Room
There you go. And scream.
and
Well, what's legal anyway?
psychedelic mushroom room.
I want to be under research to do that, though. Like, I
yeah.
want a doctor in charge.
Oh yeah, no, that's the way to do it.
A handsome one would be nice, but I can't. I'm kidding. Well, thank you
Dr.
for
Kildare.
this. Dr. McDreamy. No, anyway,
Yeah.
hats off to Grey's Anatomy. It's still on, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Thank
thanks
you,
for
Jim.
bringing this up because I think it's really a good one. And we'd love to hear what people have to say about it.
Again, the show is about connecting through our differences and through, even though we think
Yeah.
differently, we're a lot more alike.
Yes.
And that's why I brought it up.
And make sure you guys tune in to the next time. We're gonna also talk. We're gonna move it to
Borders?
borders, or we're also gonna. I'd love to talk more about that, the border, because there's a big issue about that in terms of philosophically.
That's what I want
how
to bring
we
it up.
look at
Yes.
a border, and also this obsession with politics.
Ooh, that's the one that we want to talk about. Yes.
and why
And the presidency.
the presidency is so just on obsessing. People obsess about it, who the president is, and all this kind of stuff. When the reality is that's not any way the founding fathers designed or planned for our future when they put together
Jamie
the
always has to
Constitution.
say founding fathers in every episode. And I love that you did it.
Yes. founding fathers did not lock their children in their rooms.
Yeah, right.
I should have used it then.
Yeah, they had slaves instead.
Yeah,
but
right,
that's
exactly.
all other thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, no. Look at
Yeah.
Jamie. He's like, I brought it up. I caught myself in that one. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. The founding fathers did not lock their children in the rooms because they never saw them.
Right, exactly. But anyway, no, I'm glad. Thank you so much for honoring me and letting me talk about this because it's really important, and it's a really important movement for us to shift into an energy that we really can be collective, can connect.
Mm-hmm. And I'm glad you're back. I'm glad that we're back.
Me too.
And I'm sorry for what you have had to go through all this, but
I felt it.
It's just another plane, another addition to your fabric.
You know what? Somewhere I got 4 little angels up there watching out for me. That's the way I look at it. And my mom sometimes, I can hear her going, Judith.
I love it.
So thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Jamie.
Okay, Judi, we'll see you.
Thank you for being a part of the Allman Diamond Experience. Got something to say? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. And if you'd like to cultivate more Allman Diamond Experience, and we hope you do, please subscribe and tell your friends.
Hold on a minute before you close the door. You're kinda lovely, but do you wanna talk some more? Excuse my honesty, I'm probably a comedy, but it would be a tragedy if I never spoke this soliloquy. We could pay my bedroom. We could pay my bedroom. We could paint my bedroom with the color of your smile.